administrative or informational type things, and then we'll turn it over to Carly and Kelly, who are here to talk a little bit today. I'm going to pass around a policy that the ALC is going to be discussing after this meeting. It's going to be an update or some change to our office rental policy and how it will be allocated. So feel free to kind of read that, peruse it. We're going to be discussing it in detail in the meeting that takes place after the team meeting. So if you have any input on it, just let us know. We've got calendars for the month of April up here for you. If you'd like to grab one, I'll hit some of the highlights. Bold starts next Monday, the 10th. It's going to be the 10th, 17th, and 24th of April. It's at the Wood Lake Meeting Center, 8:30 to 3:30. And then the next 3 Mondays as we look into May as well. Contrary to popular belief and the rumor mill, we're having Bold. We're always having Bold. It's going to be a phenomenal Bold, and I look forward to seeing a bunch of you there. And I greatly appreciate your support and your encouragement of the program. It's going to be a phenomenal time. Reminder, after our team meeting today, we're going to have the ALC meeting at 12:15. Our next team meeting is going to be on the 18th, and after that will be the committee meetings or whenever the committees decide to have their meetings. We've got some courses scheduled on Wednesdays regarding some of the financing addendums or inspection seat contingency addendums, etc. So if you're newer or you just want to brush up on that, come on. We talk through it. We talk best practices when it comes to some of that paperwork, etc. Thursdays, we've got agent tech support in here. If you want to have questions about e-edge, your websites, etc., Mel will be on hand to help you with that. A couple of happy hours are scheduled. We're going to do some e-edge training and some KWLS training as well later in the month. And then we do have another free CE event. Feel free to invite any friends that you might have, whether they're with our office or outside of our office. It's going to be hosted here again. And then we're going to do a happy hour right afterward. So they're more than welcome to come to that as well. And then I should have grabbed Nikki, but there might be somebody in the room that can speak to this as well. Litter Bit Better. It's we clean up part of the road nearby. That's going to take place on the 25th. So we're having a lunch and learn with the gentleman from Amic. He's going to come in, do a lunch and learn, provide us some food. And once our stomachs are full, we're going to go out and actually pick up some litter. All right, so it's going to be a great day. I guarantee you. Something we've done in the past. So also, I want to note that on the 20th and the 21st in Minneapolis, they're bringing a great program called Career Visioning into town. And that program is all about hiring. It's about finding and hiring the right people, the right talent. So whether it's an administrative person, a buyer's agent, a listing specialist, what have you, or even if you know it's something you plan to do over the next year or two, I would highly encourage you to come attend this. I'll be there. Leanne and I have talked about going together potentially. Anybody that's maybe thinking about doing some hiring or looking at administrative help, I highly encourage you to come to that. It would be a great course for you. If you want more information about that, please just email Katie and she'll send you all the info. Okay. Any questions for me regarding any of those? Oh, I should mention that. We're also going to have at our next, it's at our team meeting, right? At our next team meeting, Carly and Kelly helped me coordinate bringing Michelle and Gary Hoagland. They're another husband-wife team out of the Burnsville market. They're going to come to our team meeting in a couple of weeks and talk about farming because they are just crushing it with farming. They're farming Rosemont specifically. Do you know any other stats or any other numbers from farming last year?
I think last year they closed 15 listings out of their farm, and they just had started it that year. So the year before they had closed 3, so they went from 3 to 15
in a year. From farming. That's like the most old school tactic ever. It's huge. 15 listings. Yeah, give me a break.
They have it down to science. If you can find time to be here, I would be in that class. Right. It's really, really great.
And Gary just so happens to be a phenomenal presenter as well, so it'd be worth your time.
And that's how we said that's a team meeting.
Yep, team meeting on the 18th. Thank you for reminding me. You should come to these more often. One other reminder as well regarding our Facebook page that we have as an office. I love answering questions. Email me, call me, text me. I answer them as fast as I possibly can. But sometimes, like around 7:30, 8 o'clock, my little beautiful 1-year-old turns into a monster, and I can't always get to the phone or email immediately. So if you ever have a pressing question, the office Facebook page or group, I should say, is another phenomenal place to just post a quick question, even if it's late at night, because you typically will find somebody on there who will answer a question for you. So hey, give me a call or shoot me a text, and I'll help you with that, just in case you can't reach me or something that quickly. So now I'm going to transition to the big takeaway from today's team meeting. So a couple weeks ago, we masterminded a little bit during the team meeting about multiple offers. Does anybody remember why we specifically chose that topic to dial into.
It's our life.
Because it's our life. Yeah, unfortunately, right? It's the name of the game right now. The market is hyper competitive, especially if you're representing buyers right now. And I mean, who has made an offer this year and it's been in multiples? All right. Has anybody made an offer this year and had it not be in multiples? Like one today? Okay, just wait till noon. It'll be in multiples. It's honestly the name of the game. And so we masterminded on some ways that we can really make the offers more attractive, more competitive. And the reason I wanted to invite Carly and Kelly here today to speak specifically about multiple offers is because they're finding a lot of success going in and winning those things. Now, we started finding ourselves in multiple offer situations pretty regularly, probably 2 or 3 years ago, right? And we kind of refined what we were doing based on a track record and based on what we were experiencing to win those. But so far since the first year, Carly and Kelly have won out on 6. And that doesn't sound like a big deal, but really it is. That's pretty huge.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. So I just invited them here to share with us exactly what it is they're doing so that we can set you guys up for success as we move into the busy time of year this year. Because if you can get out there and help your buyers win these multiple offer situations, you're going to be their agent for life. And you're going to save yourself a lot of stress and hassle from having to write 12 different offers, only to have buyers say, we're just going to wait a year. Right? So anyway, without further ado, I will turn it over to them. And I'll pull up your PowerPoint here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I think I've met most of you, but if I haven't, I'm Carly. I am the better looking half of that. No, I'm kidding.
Very mean.
Our business is about 70% buyers right now. So because of our age and our sphere, a lot of the people that we help are first-time home buyers. They don't have a house to sell. They're typically coming from rental situations. So we do listings, but it's just about 30% of our business to date for this year is listings, and then the good majority of it buyers. And much like your market down here, the Twin Cities market is just as competitive. So we have just about not everyone, but 9 of my last however many offers went into multiples, and we won 6 of them. So I was talking to Zach about some of the tactics that we use. I'm lucky that right next door to my office are 2 other really great agents who work with a lot of buyers. So we do a lot of masterminding about what did you do that one. So I kind of took everything that I've learned from them, everything I've used, and then also our MAPS coach. We've talked a lot about this in the last couple of weeks. So some of the tactics that she shared with me as well, and made it into this little presentation. I'm not an expert, and I would be open to questions, discussion, hearing what you guys do, because that's really how we all get better at this. So
Can I say one thing?
no.
Thank you. The reason that I invited Carly down here is not because she's my wife and I like her, but it's because, I obviously keep up to date on what the team is doing and the successes and the struggles they're having. And I was like, holy crap, she is crushing it at multiple offers, way more than I was ever able to. So I thought bringing her down here to share what it is she's actually doing day-to-day basis would be good for you. So
I should share too, if you're familiar with the disc, my natural profile is not a mega agent. I'm not a high D. I'm actually an FC. I'm a perfect fit for an admin. So it's not my natural ability to get in there and be a bulldog and tell them that they need to pick my offer. So a lot of my tactics too are little subtle things that you can do to make your offer stand out and not just be calling them 24/7 so that they finally decide they're going to work with you because you've annoyed them to too much. So, okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the first thing that I do now is I prepare my buyers from the get-go. So when they come in, they have to do a buyer consult with me. I'm not showing you houses unless you come in to do a buyer consult. They know that you're pre-approved. And one of the things that I talk about during the buyer consultation is the current inventory in the market. And I update that pretty much every week. Like I'll run through and see how much inventory is there right now available. And I also will give examples of, hey, last week I had a buyer rate an offer in Northeast Minneapolis, which is where you say you want to be, and he was one of 20 offers. So that's not meant to scare you, but I also wanted to manage your expectations, and we might want to also consider other areas besides that one specific neighborhood because there's very little inventory and a ton of buyers out there. So if I can kind of narrow in where they're specifically looking, and I have buyers that have been in that area, I'll give that right off the bat. I want to know right away if they're able to pay their own closing costs. because that's going to help me when we structure an offer. And I bring that up to them so that they're prepared when we sit down to write an offer, that they might have to come up with that cash for the closing costs. And I know whether or not they can do that. I go over what they must have versus what they would like. So a lot of times people think they must have something, but it really turns into, well, I would really like a fireplace. It's not a must have. And we go over that in a lot of detail because with the market the way it is, to get what you really want, you might have to give on some of those things that you think are must-haves. So we have that discussion on the front end so that we can, move more quickly when we see something. What amount are they pre-approved to, and what price do they want to be under? So I have somebody right now that wanted to be under $250. He's pre-approved to $275, and we got a house under contract this weekend at $274.9. So I show him houses at $250, but I know that he can go up to $275, and he knows that he might have to go up there. Now, if he's pre-approved to $275, I'm really not showing him any houses at $275 because he's going to be in competition, and he's not going to be able to beat anyone. He can only come in at their full asking price. I tell them right when we first meet that they need to start writing a personal letter to the sellers about themselves, at least just a draft version that they can personalize to a property or that they can have on hand really quickly if we needed to get it. So I have some examples I can show you what that looks. And I absolutely will not do showings unless they have a pre-approval letter and they've come in to meet with me. So that's.
Is that because you're mean, Carly, or what's the reasoning behind that?
A couple of things. As a single woman out showing houses,
Girl, you ain't single?
first is safety. I'm not just gonna meet a internet lead out of the property that I've never met before. So part of the reason that they come in for a buyer consult is not only for me to meet them, but for them to meet me and figure out if we're a good match, and for me to figure out how serious they are. If they're not willing to come in and meet with me, then why would I be willing to go run all over town to show them houses, right? So they have to have some skin in the game, and they have to be pre-approved because of how quickly things are moving. I can't wait a week for you to get all the documents to the lender. You have to have that done before we can go look at houses. And if you fall in love with the house and then you get your lender all this stuff, by the time he or she gets back to you, the chances are that house isn't going to be available. So we have that discussion too.
Yeah. So prepare your buyers is really just another way of saying you're helping
manage their expectations and set them up for success. So that they're not like, hey, my friend told me that I should write a letter. Like, oh, shoot, I should have told you that. You need to write a letter, sort of thing, to help set yourself apart.
So the way that this is probably very different from how I operated a few years ago when I first got into businesses. I was pretty shy to be this frank and have this candid conversations with people. Like, hey, by the way, can you pay your own closing costs if you had to? Are you comfortable paying list price or more, right? Nowadays, because we just know that that's what it's going to take to win, we're just very forward and set the expectations with people because we know in the long run it's going to do them a better service to know up front. Start preparing yourself, start wrapping your mind around this because it's what's going to have to happen. We also benefit from the fact that a couple of years ago, when you told that to people, they were still a little leery of it, where nowadays it's pretty common knowledge that that's what's going on in the market. So
it'll take one time. They'll write
right.
one offer and get burned, and then they'll figure out, like, oh, you knew what you're talking about.
And then do you provide them copies of letters from past clients that they've written?
Yep.
Okay.
So I say, like, I have examples. If you'd like an example letter, I'm happy to send that to you. Some people take me up on it and some don't. And I kind of let them write whatever they want in there. So I just was sharing a veteran who was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot for the National Guard. And she had a pretty cool story. So that's pretty cool to be able to put that in your letter. So I tell people, if there's something specific about a house that you see that you make a connection with, call that out in a letter. So this weekend when I was showing houses to that same couple, we walked into a property, he's a nurse, and he saw books about being a nurse. So part of his letter was, hey, I saw in your house that somebody is a nurse, and so I felt a connection to that property. It's kind of creepy, but it's those little things that can pull at a heartstring when you're, $1,000 apart that they might pick you.
And even if they're not a nurse, they can pretend to be. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So I beat out a cash. I had a client. I had a client beat out a cash offer because he said he was a veteran, and they felt really strongly about selling to a veteran, and so somehow that was, the miracle that we had.
They had a child.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of times right now when you're writing the multiples and the letters and different things like that, if you are tugging at the heartstrings, it's a lot better it's a lot easier to get to the people at the house with that, because we just did that on, here's what the lady wrote. We're expecting our very first child.
Sure.
And I can see our child growing up in this
Yep.
home, and she said, and I can really see myself rocking our new baby in that room upstairs,
It seems-
looking out.
It
you
seems
know.
cheesy, but I mean, I also had a colleague who had somebody win an offer because they mentioned their sister lived around the block.
Yeah.
And so sellers thought, oh, how cool, we can put a family next to their family members. So
It's
anything.
not always price.
No, it's not.
I usually get those letters as an agent, and like, oh god. And then the clients reading like, oh my lord.
We have to, so.
Ready?
Carly, I got a question. Have you ever run into where sellers really object even looking at those letters? Because I'm heavy on the listing agent.
Sure.
And I've had those, and I've had 2 clients in the past that have said, I don't even want to look at those letters.
Sure.
And they just like refuse to even look at them. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, so I had one agent say, I don't present those to sellers. And I
Okay.
said, well, it's your obligation to present the entire offer. And that's the first page of
Right.
the offer.
Yeah.
It's up to them whether or not they choose to read it. So it's just one thing. I mean, if you send a letter and you're $10,000 under the next best offer, you're not gonna get it.
Right.
But it's just a little tactic to add a little personality on top of all the paperwork that they're getting. So I
Well,
guess I had that
sometimes-
one time. where they-
Sometimes in the letter too, you guys aren't necessarily just pulling at heartstrings, like Katrina specifically wrote about how strong of a buyer she was, about what she would,
That's awesome.
she's like, hey, I'm going in with BA financing, but if I need to, I'll switch to
Yeah, and
conventional.
I have a copy of her letter, so I can
Okay,
show you
well,
what it looks
sorry.
like.
Get
No,
ahead
it's
of
okay.
it. But those other things are Carly and Kelly will coach them. Hey, here's some other things you can strategically hit in your letter that are gonna make them more comfortable about you as a buyer.
You put these in with the offer? Or-
Yeah, it's
or
the first
later on?
page, I put it right on top.
Before
so
you know
before-
it's a multiple offer, you're putting that in.
Right now I am. Yeah. Sometimes I did have one buyer recently who was like, I'm not writing the letter. Cool, that's fine. So they didn't.
Do we have any obligation about discriminatory practices when we're talking with our sellers about these letters?
I don't tell them what to write in it, so it's up to them what they want to include.
What do you mean when you're the listing agent?
I mean, like,
Oh,
choosing to sell to somebody that, has a family, or over a semester.
Sure. I say you present the letter to them, let them read it, and they can come to whatever conclusions that they want to.
Yeah,
Good
so we don't put any of our opinion
Right.
or anything
No.
on with the letter, just here's the
Nope.
offer we
Yep.
received.
yep, exactly. Okay, start with a clean offer. I cannot stress this enough, and it seems so basic, but I've been told on 2 different occasions, thank you so much for the clean offer. So what I mean by that is that you have the most up-to-date forms. We recently got one where somebody filled out the wrong, seller's disclosures, and it was just sort of like, what the heck are they, they just didn't know what they were doing. It came off as like, ooh, do I really want to work with this person who's not quite organized, or do they really know what they're signing off on? Are they going to be solid? It just doesn't. And the paperwork's all properly filled out. I never check a home warranty right now in a purchase agreement from the get-go. If we decide to ask one, we do it during an inspection period once we already have the house under the contract.
And once you have some justification for it.
Right. And I always tell my buyers they can always purchase one on their own. So why ask the seller to take a $500 hit when we can take that on if we have to? And most people are open to that. And when I'm filling out the financing addendum, I don't ask for any additional funds in the blanks where it says seller will pay towards like appraisal issues or that sort of thing. I always, if we have appraisal issues, negotiate that separately, just because those little dollar amounts, even though they're a couple $100s here or there, make a big difference when you have, 5 offers on the table and one nets you $1,000 more. Well, if you have a home warranty at $500 on your financing addendum, there goes your upper hand. So
I've never put money in there. I just don't do it, so I've never had to use it. I think it's less common than it used to be, and then even when an appraisal issue does come up or a work order, typically it gets renegotiated right then and there anyway, right? You can usually get the seller to pay for it because it's relatively minor and they know they need to get it done. So just remove every possible thing that they could object to from the offer. Now you hear that a lot though, a clean offer. Like, what does that mean to you guys in the room? What is a clean offer? When we say that in our industry, what are we kind of saying about an offer when we say that?
Don't ask for anything. Don't ask for anything.
It's basically pretty, it's like, hey, here's the price, here's the earnest money, here's the close date, no additional bells and whistles thrown into the mix.
And to me, it's not having stuff crossed off and having the paperwork in the right or in a logical order, that the seller's disclosures aren't all jumbled up and then there's a lead-based paint addendum thrown in after the fact because they forgot about it. Like, you know, like I'm going to send you one document. It's going to start with their letter and their pre-approval, then the purchase agreement.
There's Carly
So-
C.
Yeah, and you usually are including a summary, right?
Yeah, right. And then when I send the email, it's going to say offer highlights, and I'm going to call out all of those things too, so that if they miss something, they have it there. I want to make it as easy as possible for that listing agent to print off my thing, walk in and say, here's this offer. And they're not fumbling or trying to email me back to look for something. They get it in one shot.
Good.
One little note on that, we use templates. Do you use those? It's good.
Do any of you guys use templates in
No,
Dublin?
they're not in Dublin.
We actually use them in Instinet forms. Do you guys have that in
Yeah.
Flex?
Yeah, you guys have Instinet.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we actually have them set up as a template, so I can go in and literally I just have to type in like the price, the earnest money close date, and then the whole rest of the purchase
The
agreement is
middle.
pretty much filled out the way that we typically do it.
Do you ever, check inspection? You're gonna like to have an inspection, but you're not gonna make a contingent on that.
I haven't personally, but I did have somebody recently do that. A colleague had offer come in that way. They didn't word it clearly that they were still going to have an inspection. So I said, if you're going to not have the contingency but still have an inspection, make sure that the other agent understands what you're going to be doing.
They did it recently to make their offer better.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand.
They think
Yeah.
you're just not having one.
Right. Yep.
So, but let me ask you this, because that's a great question, Jim. When you're going over the offer with buyers and letting them know the things they can and can't do to be competitive, do you at least educate them about that option and then kind of give what you advise?
I always advise you to get a home inspection because I don't ever want them to come back to me and say, well, you didn't tell me that I should have had a home inspection. And if you would have, I would have realized there was mold all over this house or something crazy. So to cover my own butt, I just make sure that I always recommend it and tell them it's their option whether or not they decide they want to do it. I have yet to have somebody waive one.
So we let them know, hey,
Beyond an
this is a
investor.
means that you can use to make your offer more competitive. However, we always recommend that you have the home inspection.
And I always say too, if you choose not to have a home inspection, I'm gonna have you sign something that's
Absolutely.
a waiver,
Yeah.
conversation.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So another way around that too is we typically put 10 days to get everything. It's because of the new inspection addendum, 10 days to have it all done and negotiated. If you want to do that shorter and you feel like you can do that in less time, that would be another way to still have the inspection, but maybe be come in a little bit stronger. So I can play out both those options. Yeah.
On the inspection note, if I can, I have time, I'll call like the inspectors that I have and see like
Sure.
when's your next date. So when that offer, I can say, hey, I got one on hold for, 2
That's a
days
great
from
idea.
now. And sometimes that'll help because everybody wants to get that inspection over
Done.
as fast as possible.
Yep. That's a great tip.
Good.
Yep. Call the other agents. This is not my natural personality, but our coach is really big on this. And so she says, butter them up, Carly. Call them and tell them. So I kind of put exactly what I say. So, hi, Zach, this is Carly with Keller Williams. I'm calling because I just showed your listing at 123 Main Street. What a great listing. It's awesome. My client actually just got done looking at it and she's planning to write an offer. So I have a couple questions for you if you have a minute. Sure. Is the home still available? I know with the market the way it is, sometimes we see homes and they already have offers on them within a few hours being on the market. Yep, okay, great. Do you have any offers on it currently? And I'll say yes or no. So then I always ask, how many offers do you have? And I am shocked at how I have to train myself not to keep talking because that's like my natural state is I'll just keep talking over them. Do you have any cash offers? 2 weeks ago, I had a lady tell me exactly what the other offer was. She said
That's what we need.
it's $255,000. It's conventional. They're putting 5% down. And I was like, okay, great. Are they asking for an inspection? Yep, they're asking for an inspection.
Oh my God.
And so I just kept asking questions. So guess what? I said, called my buyer. I said, here's the deal. Here's the other offer.
Did we
So-
win that one?
Yeah.
Nice job.
Yeah. Yeah. So they ended up getting 5 offers, but then I waited because she put a highest and best. I waited to submit mine until it was pretty close to that highest and best time because I knew that she just told me everything about everyone else's or the other offer on the table. So I didn't want her sharing my offer, so I waited. But this is a script that I got from. So if they say yes, there is a cash offer on the table. What price would our offer have to be at in order for your seller to consider a financed offer? Which I thought was a great script because if they say nothing, then I can save my time and the heartache of my buyer. hey, they have a cash offer on the table and they're not gonna consider anything other than cash offers right now. Okay, cool. Like, thanks for saving me the time and the heartache of losing out on that property. Or it gives you, hey, it's gotta be, at least $10,000 above what they're asking for us to even think about considering it. Okay, I can let my buyer know that, and then they can decide whether or not they want to write on it. Is there anything else you can share about the property or the type of offer that your seller is looking for? So a lot of times I'll get, with the closing date, they must have conventional financing. They would prefer not to do an inspection, those types of things that are fairly common, but yeah. So I really like that one about the cash offer. Would you consider a finance offer? And if so, what would it have to be at for it to even be considered?
And then are you asking any other questions of the agent at all in terms of how they prefer to sort of move forward and communicate, or are you just sticking kind of to the offer terms and all that?
Just sticking to the offer terms. So here's a couple example letters. Sorry, they're really small, but I'll kind of go over. So sometimes people include photos. I let them do that. Like, okay, cool. This is Katrina's offer letter, and she's the one who I was sharing who's the helicopter pilot. We got beat out 3 times in a row because we were VA financing. And that was the first time that I really had somebody say nope, it's because you're VA. So she ultimately ended up going up $23,000 above list, which sounds crazy. But it was a house that was listed at $200,000. So we got it at $223,000. And what she wrote into her offer was that as long as it appraised between $200,000 or higher, she would still move forward with the home. She also in this letter called out that she wrote, I have great credit and savings and my lender has fully reviewed everything. So there should be no surprises during this purchase. As my military service qualifies me, I have decided to use my VA benefit for this purchase. This gives me the best possible rate and allows me to have plenty of cash on hand, which should also allow me to take excellent care of the home. She also, in one other letter, said that I'm also approved conventionally, so if that creates a huge issue, I can go conventional if that's going to be, the deal breaker. So she offered up all of that information, and then
She had some pretty good coaching though, right? Because the lender, you guys really worked your lender a lot at her purchase. So
that's the next one.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, I want to pause there for that though, then, because I hear all this secondhand and I'm thinking to myself, well, that's a great idea, but that's a nice job to share that stuff. So Katrina very strategically including all that in her letter, and then knowing what her parameters were, and then I had like this is getting, we've never before said, hey, no, by the way, if it doesn't appraise at a certain amount or greater, we'll go ahead and cover the difference anyway. But we're getting to the point where it's so hyper competitive, we're trying to find every single way possible to get our buyers the properties they want. And that's one that I would wager to bet a lot of people aren't doing something like that. If you're one of the few that is doing it, that's great. And you also have to know that when you work, this is a great way for you if you represent a VA buyer or someone using that financing to say, hey, this is why we're not using it because we want 0% down because we have no money, right? We're using it because we can still get the best interest rate out there, still decide to put money down. So we're strong, we're just using VA for the interest rate. And if need be, we'll go to conventional.
So she also wrote in her offer that if they were concerned about the roof because they didn't know how old the roof was, and this house was in St. Paul. And so she wrote into her offer that if that were to be flagged by the appraiser, that she would either put the money towards having it fixed, or she would escrow the funds. So she would either pay for it up front or escrow the funds. Well, we found the old seller's disclosure from the last time it was listed. The house, the age is 12, the roof was 12 years old. So that we were able to give her that information, so she felt comfortable adding that into her offer, not to guarantee that it's not going to get flagged, but chances are it's not curling, it's not, a dilapidated roof or anything. So yeah.
If I can add just one thing, because so many people are so afraid of VA loans.
Yeah.
And I think the main reason for that is because so many loan officers don't do them often enough.
Yep.
And so that's why stuff goes wrong with them. But if you have time, if you can get your VA buyers through underwriting before you make an offer, so that you can say everything is already done and we can close in less than 30 days, that's huge. Instead of saying it's going to take 6 weeks or longer because the typical VA process and everything is already done.
Yeah, we do a ton of VA business, and I can't even think of one that went beyond standard 30 to 45 days.
I had a realtor tell me last summer, we won't work with any USAA loans.
Oh yeah, we don't use
work with.
It's,
We don't
so
either.
as a listing agent, we'll consider an offer, but when I have buyers and they say they're going to get pre-approved through USAA, I say, let me make a recommendation to you.
We have them
I
get
love
pre-approved
USAA.
somewhere else as well.
I'm a customer of theirs. They're great for car insurance, but for home loans, they're not designed to do it. They're not good at it. And the best they give you before you have a home under contract is pre-qual, not a pre-approval. They don't pre-approve somebody until they have a home under contract, which we all know is backward, right? And then because they're not centrally located, they do crazy things like request
Ask for a termite
termite stuff and blah, blah, blah. So nothing against the company, but their process for home loans has shown room for improvement. One more thing about VA financing addendums, and I'll let you to cover this one as well, but we'll typically check the funding fee, 100% paid by a buyer added to mortgage amount.
Yeah.
That's typical, and that's pretty common regardless of multiples or not, but that's one way to just cover that as well.
Next slide. So have the lender call. We talked a little bit about this. So I have them call and talk to the listing agent about their ability to pay, that they're a strong buyer, what they've already gone through with underwriting, how far they've gotten, they verified all their assets, how quickly they can close. So it's just giving them another warm and fuzzy that we have our ducks in a row and we are going to be great people to work with. Your mom actually had somebody last week where she called the lender and the lender was like, who are you calling about? Like, that doesn't, that is not good. Like, sorry, I'm golfing right now. Like, okay, so I always have a conversation with the lender before we're submitting an offer, and then I also ask them to call. So not only if they don't reach them, but also if that listing agent reaches out, that they know that there's a call that's coming and we've submitted an offer. So they should know that
I'm
already.
working with a great lender right now up in Minneapolis. That has been amazing. Yeah, he's been amazing.
Cool.
What I'll say about Liz too is Liz was the lender for Katrina, and she, like, anytime that they, like, because you lost out on a couple right beforehand, Liz would call and be like, hey, why'd we lose? And she was trying to get very creative to find out what can we do, because Liz was kind of like, would you consider going conventional? Would you consider? Didn't she sit down and crunch some numbers with Katrina and basically say, like, what?
She kept saying, she crunched numbers. She said VA is the best route for her to go, even with the 20% down because of the interest rate. And so she was able to call the listing agents and have that discussion. Like, hey, she can go conventional, but this is why. And she is, pre-approved conventionally as well. So don't let that scare you.
Did she also, like, help you guys realize or get some information about, hey, if you have appraisal issues up to this amount,
Yeah.
you can still make it work.
Yep.
Like, you have cash on hand to cover this.
Yeah, so she said as long as it appraises at their list price, she would still be fine with the amount that she's putting down. Yep. Remove seller paid closing costs. That seems like a no-brainer, but right now in the market that it is, I always encourage buyers that have that cash on hand. If it means you're only going to put 5% down, then because you have to have the other cash to pay your closing costs. And rolling it on top, I won one last week or the week before because we didn't include it and the other offer tried to roll it on top and they felt better about.
So what does that make everybody afraid of?
Appraisal.
Right.
So.
No, I was sweating.
Were you?
Well, it was listed at $389. They bought it a year ago at $369. And my guy rolled in his closing costs, so I put it over $390 something, and I'm going,
Was it conventional?
Yep, but it raised up. We talked a little bit about this, shorten the inspection timeline or get rid of it altogether. I never advise that you get rid of the inspection, but some people choose to do it that way, and we're starting to see it happen. I think I already shared we can shorten it down, or like Todd mentioned, call ahead and already have that inspection scheduled so that they know that you can get it done quickly. And then I try and manage their expectations on what we're asking for. If we're looking for safety and structural stuff, like I don't want the fact that there's a switch that needs to be replaced on the requests of stuff from the inspector. Address any potential appraisal issues. So this goes back to Katrina with the roof thing. She straight out said, like, hey, I know you're concerned about the roof. I will sign something that says that I will pay for it if it gets flagged. And she's still willing to purchase the property if it didn't appraise. Check on any pending assessments. I don't know how common that is down here. but recently had somebody beat us on an offer because they found out what the assessment was going to be and wrote into the purchase agreement that the buyer was gonna take it on and they weren't gonna ask the seller. There's 6 offers and only 1 agent did that, and that's who won.
So here's the takeaway from that though, is when you do lose out on multiples, how many of us are taking the time to say very specifically, why didn't we win? How did the other offer be? What could we have done that maybe would have allowed us to win?
That's good. I ask
You know what
every
I mean?
time. Sometimes they'll share and sometimes they won't, but it's a lot easier to go back to.
Often they will though, right?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to go back to the buyer and say, hey, there was a cash offer on the table that netted them more. So you did everything you could and they chose that. But for this, it was like, oh, okay, I need to even though we saw it at 5 and the deadline was 7, and so I was rushing to get everything done, gotta, double check those little things that, that won it for that person. So. Encourage the seller to counter your offer. So
This is where I would typically butter somebody up.
When I submitted it, I said we pulled up pretty much every stock that we could think of, but if we have missed something that your seller is looking for, please counter us back. Like, my buyer wants this home, and so if there's something else that they're looking for, we would welcome a counter on any of the terms that we've put forth. And I've had people come back and say, we're gonna work with you first, but this is what we need. Okay, at least we have an opportunity then, we're at the table, we're not just getting shut down because we didn't say that we're open to discussing some of the items.
Basically a chance to say, hey, here's the deal, here's our offer, but I wanna let you know, let us know whatever it's gonna take to win this thing. There's a good chance we'll do it, right? And so sometimes being the first one to make an offer can be advantageous. So I used to kind of just poo-poo that, like that's really not that big of a deal. But what you can do is if you're the first one to get your offer in, you can sometimes leverage that when it goes into multiples. When you have this conversation, say, hey, here's the deal. If we were the first one to the table, I know you're in multiples now, but we're hoping the sellers will honor the fact that we made our offer first. And if they want to counter us back on anything, just let us know. We will work with them. Because I think that sometimes goes a long way with people. When you were the first one there, they oftentimes want to give you a chance to see if they can find an agreement with your person before they open it up to everybody, because you were that first one that got your foot in the door. So don't discount being the first one on the table, and then re-bring it up when you're having this discussion. You're trying to butter them up a little bit.
We've done a couple where we've just left the closing date blank and said, especially because we work with so many first-time home buyers, a lot of them are coming from rentals where they could do a month-to-month or live at mom and dad's for a little bit. Just straight up say, you can pick whatever close date you like. Or any close date before August 1st. So, and we found that they like that flexibility because they're about to be in the same situation that we are. They've sold their house and now they need to go find one, and they might not be able to close in 30 days or 45 days. So giving them that flexibility to pick something that puts their mind at ease a little bit can also help strengthen your offer.
This is a huge one. Now, this is a tactic that can sometimes get yours picked over another one that nets them more, because of that certainty, knowing that they have the flexibility with closing, because that's usually, besides price, the number one concern or worry that your sellers have out there are, how are we going to be able to logistically coordinate the closing on this one and what we're going to move into. So when you give them that peace of mind and say, you can determine when that is, that makes your offer super, super attractive.
I will even call the listing agent and ask them what the closing
date
is. And I've even, by talking to them, sometimes I find out that they've got an offer contingent upon the sale of their home. And I've had one agent say, well, if your buyer is okay to close here and let them stay till the weekend, he can have the property on Monday. And he beat out 9 offers by allowing them to do that.
This is also a tactic that we'll try to utilize when we suspect that a property will go into multiples, but we're the first one. We can say, hey, here's the deal. We're going to net you what you're asking and let you pick the close date. Sometimes you can lock it up before other offers have a chance to sneak in there by saying, you guys can pick your close date, because you're literally giving them everything they want.
Just, that was pretty.
Yeah, just this weekend we did.
Well,
Thanks for the time. Can add an escalation clause. Has anyone done this? Yes. Okay, so I always fill in a price on the first page of the purchase agreement, and then I put an asterisk at the bottom that says C lines 302 to 306 or whatever which is the other section on the purchase agreement. So And this is something I talk about during the buyer consultation. Like, hey, this is one tactic we can use so that they've heard about it before we get to a property that has a bunch of offers
Because
on it.
this can be super confusing,
Yeah, so,
especially first-time home buyers.
and it's beat your best net offer. So they have to sometimes explain that to people, even if they have an offer that's at, 300, but they've asked for 5,000 in closing costs, then really you're at a 295.5 or 296. So this is the verbiage that I add in, and should the seller receive an offer that nets him more than whatever the price may be, the buyer is willing to go above that offer by a net of 500 to a maximum sale price of whatever it is, if they have a maximum, or leave it open if they're willing to go to whatever. Buyer requests a copy of the other PA showing the sale amount in that scenario, just because people don't trust each other. And so even though, we trust that another agent has another offer, that way we can have everyone have some peace of mind that they're not overpaying for the property, because oftentimes it's going to come to whatever that amount is. I've had several that the other offer was 132, and we said we'd go to 132.5, and that was enough to do it. So this one for sure requires a phone call to the other agent, because some people haven't seen it and they get confused about what you're trying to do.
But you also have to explain to the agent that it's the net. We will beat the net.
Yeah.
Because the price, closing costs, all that, honestly, it is irrelevant. What I'm telling you is we will net your clients the most money compared to anybody else, and then we can figure out how we're going to structure it in order to do that. Obviously, they need to approve that as well. But let them know we're honing in on the net here and what it's going to take to net your folks.
Some agents don't like this, some sellers don't like this. So sometimes they will make you say an actual price and not allow the escalation clause. So I always coach the buyer on the front end too. Hey, they might come back and say they're not going to do this. So then I need to know if you're going to go to 132.5 or if you're going to stay where you are or end up somewhere in the middle. So, but we've had good success using that.
I can only think of one time where they said no. I'm sure it's happened more than once, but one agent was just like, hey, nope, don't do it that way. We're like, okay, we want it anyway.
Yeah.
But
Erickson's though,
so two then.
they said they did it, but we didn't win. So they picked an offer that didn't have an escalation.
Which is really hard to explain to your clients. But was it a cash offer they got beat out on, or I don't even know.
Also another, I'm Wisconsin licensed, I don't know if anybody else is in here, but you cannot use that in the Wisconsin form. There's actually exact verbiage, and it's a long paragraph, 2 long paragraphs that we need to use by law in the state of Wisconsin that the WRA put out for us. So I don't know if
So don't
anybody.
do that if you're in
For an
Wisconsin.
escalation
For the
clause.
escalation
So you
clause.
can do one, it just has to be
An exact,
worded the same, a certain way.
because it's against the law for agents to get the PA. So we have to actually put all of that verbiage in there stating that, and the seller has to show it to the buyer, which in my instance, I know most of the agents in my area.
Sure.
I know who I can trust and who I can't. So if I can trust them, I don't even go down that road with them.
So it has to do with showing the other purchase agreement.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, last tip is find off-market listings. So networking with other agents about what they have that's coming up on the market. I showed 2 homes last night that are not coming on for 2 weeks, but I heard about them coming on, so I was able to get my buyer in there ahead of time to take a peek at them. Are they willing to consider offers if you like it? Can you write an offer before it even goes on the market? We have, the next slide I'll show you, we email our database with all our buyer needs. So here are all our buyers and this is what they're looking for. Do you or someone you know have a property that meets one of their criteria that you're thinking of selling, or know somebody who's thinking of selling? Not only is that helpful for your buyers, but if they don't have an agent, you could also potentially list the home if it's one that you took your buyer through and they didn't like. So calling expireds and for sale by owners from last year or the year before. So not just expired or just for sale by owners, but hey, maybe they had their house on the market when it wasn't so great. Give them a call back and see if they are still thinking about selling, because now the market's hot and they could probably get top dollar for their property. So maybe they have the property that your buyer wants and they consider selling now when the market would get them what they want for their property. And then door knocking neighborhoods, which if you come on the 18th, the Hoaglunds do that every Thursday afternoon. And it's not just, they have some scripts that they'll share. It's not just door knocking to, hey, do you want to sell your house? But they do like a food drive, so they have a reason to be at the door. They have some fun scripts that they use to, that neighborhood knows that they're going to sell their home, that you should be calling them. So the next slide is just a copy of, so this is what we, and it says like Cody from Burnsville and Jennifer and Matthew from Minneapolis, and this is what they're looking for. And it's sort of, it's supposed to be eye-catching, and it's another touch for our database, shows them that we're doing business, and then hopefully, like I said, can create listings. And
what I like about this marketing piece is it serves so many different purposes, right? Number one, you're trying to find your buyer's properties, which might potentially lead to listings, etc. Number two, it's another touch or another top of mind marketing piece, your communication to your sphere, to your database, to your past clients, etc. You know, another way to get them in conversation about you, to remind you that you're in the business. And then what else is it? Is it kind of telling them subconsciously?
you're busy.
We've got 5 different buyers right now, right, that we chose to put on here. So we're busy, we're helping people, and that's important because when people refer you or put you in touch with somebody, they want to know that you're somebody who's out there that's busy, that's doing business, and is going to be a good person to refer their friends and family to. So.
And we just made this in Publisher and saved it as a JPEG. Should be in Canva, but you can make it in Publisher.
Yeah, just wait. It's just
You wouldn't even have to make it as pretty. You could just make it text. I mean, it's a simple thing that
So now we'll
helps you
do.
get some stuff that might not be on the market.
So there are 2 systematic emails that go out now. One is a monthly newsletter, and then one is like monthly buyer needs, right? So you're getting 2 different communications that will space out in 1 month. So if I'm doing 2 per month for 12 months, what am I already at in terms of my touch campaign? I'm already at 24. And that's the easy gimme stuff. And this is not hard sell stuff. This is sort of coming from contribution, right? Hey, who do you know that we might be able to pair these people up with? Okay.
You don't have to have 5 buyers if you have 1.
Right. And when you make it somewhat personal, people get, hey, do I know this was Bryce from Lakeville?
Yeah.
Like when you give the names and stuff, people they're just way more interested. They put their creepy hat on and start creeping, right?
Mm-hmm.
So another way for you to get in touch with them. And
I've also seen like a family from Lakeville if you didn't want to put their first name.
The team,
Newlyweds from Minneapolis.
another team who we like looked at their stuff to do this,
And we copied this from.
they said that 10% of all the listings that they have come from this.
Which team was that?
The Success Home team.
Oh, okay. At Roseville.
So then they added that to the top of this one.
Yeah.
So the top of theirs now says 10% of our listings come from off market or 10 or
Yeah.
off
Well,
market.
they
Yeah.
last year, did they bring a buyer to one of ours before it went on the market?
That's the last thing.
Questions?
None of it's like groundbreaking stuff, but if you can do it kind of conjunction and put a few of the things or all of them in one, it really helps to show the listing agent and the sellers like, hey, we want this. Pick us.
Question about off-market listings. Can we ask a question about that, or are we just going to
No, go ahead.
back it? So let's say I've got somebody who says, I'm going to list my house in a couple weeks, and of course we've heard of people who are looking for that. So if I'm the seller, you go, okay, the convenience of having somebody buy your house without having to stage, et cetera, is great. But for them to come back and go, wait a minute later and go, I could have gotten in multiples. I could have gotten more. I mean, for us to be able to explain that to them, and I feel like that this would just be me, that I would have them sign that I understand that, I mean, something to go that they don't come back later and go, you didn't tell me there's like this multiples and everyone's telling me they're getting 10,000 more than what they're asking. And so how do you cover yourself in that situation?
Great. You want me to answer that one?
You can answer, I can give my 2 cents on it.
So I'd be upfront with them, just like you mentioned. Hey, here's the deal. You do have the possibility of going on the market, which is going to obviously expose you to more buyers, which could eventually impact what you get for your home. Have a discussion about the pros and cons of not having to go through the listing process, like you mentioned. And then ultimately, if you allow someone to view the property and then make an offer on it before it goes on the MLS, I'm very, very frank, or I would be very, very frank with that buyer's agent. Say, hey, you better make it worth their time if you think you're going to lock this property down before we put it on the MLS. Like, it has to be a very, very, very attractive offer. And if they bring one, if the sellers have a set criteria, we want this price, we're not willing to do this, we want this for a closing date, blah, 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 and the buyers are willing to agree to that, then you can make it a win-win from a lot of different aspects regarding that transaction.
So similar to if you withhold a listing, we have to have them sign that withheld, that I understand by not putting this on the MLS, we're greatly reducing the exposure, blah, blah, blah. And I guess just my gut and wanting to protect myself feels like that something similar needs to happen in an off-market type situation.
I would, whether, you have a one-time showing agreement, or if you go back to your listing contract and you add an amendment to it in which you include that verbiage. There are tons of ways you could add that back into a listing agreement.
We just had, Matt Austinson just sold a house pre-MLS. So he had it on as TNAS, so it was on the market, but temporarily not available for showing. And somebody asked if they could see it, and his seller said, okay. They came in $5,000 above the ask price and didn't include seller clothing, no inspection, whatever. And so the seller said, I'm gonna take that.
If you think
So-
about it, the seller can almost ask for even more of a premium, because they're saying to the buyer, say, if you want to avoid a competitive situation, like if they expose it to the MLS, they don't know, they might get 3,000-5,000 more. But before they put it on the MLS, if someone's interested, they can say, yeah, we'll sell it to you ahead of time for 10 more. So they could actually use it to their advantage to potentially get even more than if they were to go on MLS and go through multiple.
But to your point, you should explain all of the pros and cons.
It's the lovely guessing game of real estate. You never know, and once you get somebody $10,000 more for their house, you're going to get mad because they think they could have got 11.
Well, it's the guessing and it's the covering your tail, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Combination.
On the seller are the ones who get to make that decision. Like we have one that's on as TNAS and somebody wanted to see it and the seller said no. So we didn't get to.
He said, no, I want to put it on the market, and
Yeah.
so it's coming on this weekend.
Other questions?
We can't withhold properties at our office, so if we have it signed, it goes on as temporarily not available for showing.
I like that method way better anyway, because you get it under contract, you immediately put it on MLS, TNAS, which means people can't actually search for it. And oh, by the way, you still have the ability to market it.
Seymour's got some weird.
CMAR's crazy. I don't like
rules
CMAR.
about that.
Is this being recorded? I
So-
take that back.
Yeah,
That's
so,
all right, we don't either.
It's been changed. I'm on the MLS board, and that's one of the rules, like withheld, it used to be, because I know up in the cities you can do that. And I think within the last couple newsletters,
It would have been.
she addressed that issue.
Thank you, Michelle.
So what's the new rule?
Well, it used to be once the property was withheld from the market, those days would continue to count.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
anymore. So that allows you to take a listing and then withdraw it from the market instead of, because you would counsel a client maybe 2 or 3 months pre-sale.
That's been the way for months.
Right. But now we get the contract, we get it signed, and then we withdraw it, because otherwise you're working with the client and then
But I
it
mean, I
becomes
was
time
done
to
last
list.
year and withdrew it, and then it didn't keep adding the days.
Or withdrawn.
Oh, well, they must have.
No, it just
Overlooked that.
happened a couple weeks, I don't know how that would have happened, it's a new
It
rule.
was,
Withdrawn versus withheld. Well, I'll have Katie dig it up to find out.
Anyway,
Because we had that discussion up front, and then you and I actually talked.
But that is an added benefit. So North Star MLS calls it TNAS, temporarily not available. And when you switch your property to that, your days on market stop. And then when you come back on the market, it picks up where you left off. Versus if you just do a withheld from MLS, well, by the time you actually put it on MLS, if you had it withheld for 30 days, you start at 30 days on MLS, right?
And that was just in yesterday's CMAR newsletter that they had changed it, but they, with so many caveats, you know, there was a flood and they had to have time to back him up the water.
Right. Well, here's what I'll do. I'll take a look at that and then our next team meeting, we'll touch on that specifically and maybe have a little Q&A about that. So we only have a couple minutes left. So we talk a lot about multiple offers from the standpoint of a buyer's agent. And I want to have just a quick discussion of when you're a listing agent and you find yourself in a multiple offer situation, what are some best practices for how you handle that? So let's have a discussion. Who's found themselves in that situation and what approach are you taking? I thought you were volunteering. Sue, go ahead.
I have. Well, I had one property, we had 15 offers. And first of all, I have a spreadsheet. I have the stack of offers with me. And this is Wisconsin, so it's different. We actually have a multiple counter offer we can do. But I have a spreadsheet and I will put everything, all the terms in the spreadsheet so that they can look at everything.
You kind of summarize each
Yes.
offer via a
Yep.
net sheet.
Yep, and then at the bottom, their net proceeds, their approximate net proceeds. So right off the bat, I do that, and I put the name of the buyer so I can keep track of which buyer it is, and they will usually narrow it down to 2 or 3 offers, and then maybe versus on their what their net is, or it could even be the closing date, and then they'll just take a really good hard look at those 2 or 3 offers. And I've had a lot of clients, and maybe, you know, we always tracked who we are. I'm a very high D personality, so I have a lot of high D personality clients who, when we get the letters, they're just like, nope, I don't even want to look at them, and they just put them on the side. So that's why I was asking you, Carly, how if you had that issue with your buyers, and then from there, and I've got one right now. The seller, I'm really concerned about the appraisal because we listed it high, and then the offer came in 15,000 higher even, and he wanted that offer, and I kept saying to him, yes, okay, this price is good, however, I don't think it's going to appraise at this. He goes, well, what do you think it's going to appraise at? I said, probably 15,000 less, right where we're at, and I'm really concerned about that appraisal. And now he went and purchased the house, and he keeps telling me, Sue, I needed to appraise at 230, not at 215. And I'm like, Derek, remember our conversation? This probably isn't going to happen. 220 at the most. And so that's been a very, very tough.
Are they willing to pay the difference, or do you ask the buyer to?
The buyers won't, because it's in my opinion, a crappy offer, and that with the loan, it's USDA, no money down. They're paying their closing costs, but it's no money down.
So let me ask you this for the room. A lot of times, have you ever been have you ever been in a situation where you represent a buyer who submitted an offer, it's in multiples, and then for one reason or another, the way it plays out, you just feel like something shiesty went down? Have you ever been in that situation?
On the seller's side.
No, as a buyer's
As a
agent.
buyer's
Yes.
agent, something
Yeah,
shiesty,
if something
yes.
shiesty happened
Yes.
during the multiple offers situation,
Yes.
right? So what are you guys doing as a listing agents to ensure that process doesn't feel that way, or can at least minimize that as much as possible when you're receiving multiple offers from buyer's agent? What's the process you utilize, or how do you approach it systematically and carefully to ensure that there's communication, there's as much transparency as you can have, so that you alleviate that?
Just establish a time frame, you know, when you're gonna present for sure, so that they
Absolutely.
know,
Right.
you know.
So what's one of the first
yeah.
things you do, Leanne? As soon as you get multiple offers on a property, what do you typically do?
We call the sellers and say, no.
You notify the sellers, yep.
We're getting all these offers in, and when is the best time for you guys to sit down and meet? We wanna give it some time, but we don't wanna lose anybody either.
Right.
So sooner would be better, but can we establish a day? We gotta get their permission, otherwise, you know, people get flaky and they run away.
Right. So once they give you a date and time, then what do you do with that information?
Well, then you just go back to each of the agents and let them know, hey, my sellers have decided that this is the date we're gonna sit down and look at everybody's offer.
Mhm.
If you have any changes or anything like that that you'd like to submit before, just call or whatever.
How far out do you go for that?
Try to do it within a couple of days. I mean, it's really stressful for the buyers. I mean, I just got one today and I'm like, yes! Oh my God!
Sure, great. So you're getting multiples, you're notifying the buyer's agents almost immediately. Hey, we have received another offer, we're in a multiple offer situation. I'll have more information to you shortly regarding a timeline.
Yeah.
Speak to the sellers, you come up with a timeline, you notify everybody, to include people that have showings booked on the property, potentially, right? And then from there, you're just very communicative and transparent about the process.
Yeah.
When you get an offer, let somebody know you received it. If they don't win, let somebody know they did not win, right? Do them that courtesy.
Absolutely.
Because you might do everything 100% right, but if you don't communicate or whatnot, they're not going to perceive it as an honest mistake.
No.
If they just lost out on a
Right.
multiple offer, they're going to perceive or jump to a worst case scenario. So when you find yourself in those situations as a listing agent, do your best to bring some order, some transparency to that transaction moving forward, so that everybody feels like they know what's going on every step of the way. Yes, sir.
I would do these in email and phone calls.
Absolutely.
In the back, yeah. Never get into an arbitration or a dispute over.
Bless you. Nothing fires somebody up more than losing in a multiple offer situation, both the client and the agent. And then, and I've seen, in agents, we kind of get it. We've been there. We've had to deal with it before. But clients sometimes don't understand, and they think that something crazy wrong happen and they're mad and they want someone to blame and they're starting to research how can I hold somebody accountable. Yes, ma'am.
So how do you deal with when you're in a multiple offer situation, you represent the seller, but you also represent one of the offers by a buyer? Because that's when it starts looking feisty, where the offer that wins is actually your other side of the deal.
One of the first questions that you ask when you're in a multiple offer situation of the listing agent is how many offers do you represent in the other?
That's right.
And if they say yes, what's the next question you ask?
Is yours, are you a variable?
Do you have a variable rate comp? Right? Do they have to disclose to you if they have a variable rate comp?
Yep.
Yep, they
Yes,
do.
they
Do they
do.
have to disclose to you the amount?
No.
No, but they have to disclose. Variable rate comp, so for example, Carrie, I say, I'd love to list your property for 6%, but if I also bring the buyer, I'll have a variable rate comp, which means I bring it down to 5.
Yeah.
Right? So if let's say that both Carly and Kelly and I all have offers in on your property, and I'm the listing agent, well, if they ask me if I have an offer in on the property, I have to say yes. And if they ask me if I have a variable rate comp on it, I have to tell them yes. If I do, but I don't have to disclose to them what the amount is of the variable rate comp. And why is that important, relevant information?
Because then we can bump
Affects their net.
Because they're gonna counsel their clients a little bit differently, right? Hey, they might have like a 1%, for example, variable rate comp, so let's make our offer more competitive with that.
In CMAR, we're supposed to be putting that right in.
Yeah, so you should, because here's the deal, can a variable rate comp be negotiated at any time?
Yes.
Yeah, you can do it the day of your listing, so you know it, it's captured on MLS, or if you're like me, you've had a good high school buddy, we had his property listed, they were trying to just break even on the property, he calls me and says, hey, Zach, would you be willing to change some things for me? Right, so you can take a listing and not have a variable rate comp, but then later on, agree to one, and it might not be reflected on MLS, right, because you inputted it months ago. Right, so one, you can change it on MLS, or two, if they call you and ask you that, and you have one in place, you have to disclose and let them know that you have the variable. Most people don't even know to ask that question, right? Most people don't even know what a variable rate comp is, let alone the fact that you have to disclose if you have one or not, if somebody asks you. That was a very good point.
It doesn't affect what you pay out, it just affects your own commission, right?
It affects the seller's net.
Right, but as far as the 3%.
The 2.7 or the 3% to the
yeah.
buyer's agent is still the same, yeah. But if you're gonna shortchange or wheel and deal on your listing commission side, but that might be a few $1,000 right there added to the seller's net, so the buyer's agent's gonna know that.
Commission net.
Right, yeah, exactly. Anything else for the good of the order? Otherwise, it's about that time. We'll wrap it up, and then the ALC meeting will take place right here at 12:15. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Carly. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, me too. And then answer my phone call. And get more coffee.
Yeah.
You better get